Welcome to Crossman Live, the series. I'm Josh Sears.
And I'm Jack Breinicke. And tonight we're going to have our Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And there's a bonus segment, some not former, I should say, uh, some previous inductees into the Crossman Hall of Fame who have also been inducted into the DCI Hall of Fame. And we'll have a roundtable discussion with Doug Stemmett. And we got a few other things, right, Josh?
Yep. So recently there was a 5K that the Crossman put on. So let's take a look at that.
Hello, this is Tim Stevenson. I'm Arts Baritone, 2011 through 2015, which, if you do the math, is 5 years ago. And I'm going to do my 5K. Sun's going down here in Dallas, Texas. It's a breezy 93 degrees. I have my Run Your Brass Off shirt, and I ate a bagel before I got here, so I'm just full of raw energy, I hope. But I'll see you guys on the other side. This park is like 0.7 miles around it, so it's like 5.25 laps. All I need is a breathing tube, and I'm ready to go. I just finished my 5K, 33 minutes, which is not too bad for no training. I looked up the world record, and it was 12 minutes and 37 seconds, which I did in the first mile. It's all about pacing. So I'm happy to support the Crossman family and protect the legacy. It's a lot of fun. I urge everyone to do it. By the time you see this, the event will be over, but it's always nice to get out there and get active and support the family. Thank you guys so much. 33 minutes. I can only go from there.
Hey Bones, here we are in the woods in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, doing the Crossman 5K walkathon. We've got a small group here. It's pretty hot out today, 95 degrees, and heat index is well over 100. Our trail today takes us along the banks of the eastern branch of the historic Brandywine. About 8 miles south of here, it mixes with the western branch. Another 10 miles downstream, and you're in the state of Delaware.
Look at that parent go! Woohoo! Jack.
Oh, hey, we got a deer in the woods. Let's check this out. Oh, look, there's a chipmunk on the lower rail. Hey, little guy, what you doing?
What's it look like I'm doing?
I don't know.
I'm running in the Crossman 5K. Duh.
That's gonna take you all day.
15 minutes, tops. You gotta scale it down, bro. 2.5 more posts, and I'm done for the day.
Hey, buddy.
Time to go for a swim. Woohoo!
Well, here we are at the end of the trail. Nice little shady area. With some bones.
Food trucks here.
Thanks to everybody that participated in the 5K this year. We hope to make this an annual event. So next year, keep your eyes and ears open, and we will be putting out the word, and you guys can organize something in your neighborhood.
Yep, that you can. So next we've got a staff spotlight handled by Aaron Goldberg and Taylor Jenkins. Let's turn it over to them.
Eric, you've had a lot of roles in the Crossmen that spans across decades. Do you have any favorites or ones in which you felt you were the most impactful for the drum corps?
Well, I think by correlation and by the calling, it was about being creative, having the opportunity to design and then see it come to life on the field. And that had many layers. I mean, part of that was it went back to the amazing people I worked with that brought it together. And so there was that journey. And then, as the corps came together, you get to that place of, how will this turn out? I mean, and it was back then, it was still paper and pencil, and unlike Pieware now, you did, you guessed at, you had the tools, but you were looking at what size step it would be. Sometimes it was ludicrous. And I know Dee Dee had a great story when she was talking about well, she was in the garden. I was just saying, just keep running, keep going, you'll be all right. It was crazy at times, but that was part of the process. We learned through that, through like anything, through asymmetry you learn.
Eric, you were a performer in the Crossmen before you were a staff member. How do you think that experience, being a marching member in the same corps that you eventually were to teach and to design for, how do you think that experience might have helped you or benefited you?
It was, I dare say it was everything. I mean, it was, I was, drum corps is in my blood. My father was in drum corps. So the seed was in me, but my father had passed and I didn't know what I was going to do. And, I met Brian Law at a guard rehearsal. We were, Dan Brown and I were looking into this. This is back in '76, the winter of '76. And he then invited us to a drum corps rehearsal. We're like, sure, we'll try it. Well, the rest is history. So now everything about my experience in those 3 years at the corps moved me, and to know where the Crossmen were nearly from its very roots. I got in '77, but there was a lot of legacy. There was a lot of energy and a lot of pride in that. So that just elevated the honor of being involved. It really did, because it was my corps, quote unquote. It was my family. You get that it's the seed that's planted. And then it grows. It's rooted, and then through time you're able to give back, and there's a gratification and an honor to do that.
We all have great stories. Do you have a good one that you've been telling a lot over the years?
So I thought about a lot of different things. When I was a member, what it meant to make finals. That was something that impacted me, and there was that. There was in a bus somewhere in, I don't know, I think it was Utah. And pulling up on the wreckage of the Spirit Atlanta truck, and being part of that, and being connected with that family of people in a unique way, drum corps way. But that was heart-wrenching. When I thought about that question, and I thought about, my gosh, when I think about the length of time and the amount of things that my eyes and saw and my ears heard, and throughout the whole country. I mean, to go to the back door of states and to see things that nobody else would see, all that what played into it. There was more excitable moments. There was sometime, I think might have been '88, we were on the road and we just couldn't get it together. We were just touring very, very poorly. And we were trying to get our feet up and trying to get it going. So there were times there was a lot of emotion to get the message across, because look how bizarre it all was. I mean, think about all these young people jammed together in buses, and just all of a sudden, okay, hey, we're all going to be family now for the next 2 months. It was so unique. So I guess I can't specifically answer as much to say that I'm infused with it. It has no beginning, it has no end, kind of a thing.
Eric, I just want to add, I'm assuming to have been there, physically present at the moment that the Crossmen helped Spirit. What year was that in their accident?
79.
79. The bond between the two corps is still, ever strong. I mean, pretty incredible. When Crossmen had fallen out of finals, Spirit makes a delta on the field for finals retreat, and vice versa. They still play together, Russian and Georgia, and it's pretty incredible thing from what I know, and still going. So to have been there, at the moment that it happened, and to see that there is still this legacy, over 40 years later, pretty incredible.
It is. Rick Reedy just put up an article by Sandy Lester, I think it was. And it was way back in the day, but she explained what happened. And it's really a good article. The detail of it, like I'd forgotten it the night before, we were the only 2 DCI corps in some South Dakota event. And they left the stadium lights on. We went out, we played for each other, and we really bonded. And it was the next day of the accident. So that played, the momentum of that fellowship played into it. And of course, they returned the favor and helped us. And then to this day, they have a special award at their banquet.
What would be your Mount Rushmore of Crossmen shows?
97, I think. I mean, 92 is really close too. I mean, I have to toss it up. You need to have mud in order to have a Lotus. And there was just some very tough years, but there was a lot of heart in those years too. 78 was quite unique with the long capes and having a feel about all that and how we looked and how we felt, and we were players, you know. So that had to be up there. And what was the year the Corps did the vampire thing?
2009.
I think that was unique. I don't know. It just struck me as, oh, that's cool. The blood cross and, you know, everything about that was kind of very interesting to me.
Eric, I want to say as my personal wrap up, we loved you in 1998. We love you
Yes.
now. You would give some really genuinely amazing motivational speeches.
The seeds were planted, and I was just fortunate enough to pass it on. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you, guys. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed this, and two of my favorite members. It's good to be with you this evening.
Likewise.
And I wish all the best to the Crossman family.
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
All right, that was some great stuff with Eric Kitchum in there. Brought back some memories for me. Now our next segment, the segment that everybody's been waiting for, or the two segments that everybody's been waiting for, the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And first, we're going to have the DCI/Crossman Hall of Fame members, and that is hosted by Doug Stemmett. Take it away, Doug.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Crossman Live the Series. Today's Hall of Fame special episode. We've got a special segment with the individuals you see on the screen today, and they all have a unique distinction and connection. They are all members of the Crossman Hall of Fame, but they are also in the Drum Corps International Hall of Fame. With us today, we have Tom Hannum, who was a drummer in the Corps and staff and went on to great things with many other corps and with the University of Massachusetts and percussion clinics and just hundreds of things. Tom was inducted into the Drum Corps International Hall of Fame in 2001 and the Crossman Hall of Fame in 2003. And then in the upper right-hand corner, we have Ralph Pace, drill designer extraordinaire for the Crossman and instructor in many other drum corps throughout the years. Ralph was actually teaching when I was marching. As a matter of fact, I have a connection, I think, to everybody on the call today that I either marched with, taught with, or was directed by. So I feel honored just to be in your presence. Ralph was inducted in the Drum Corps International Hall of Fame in 1991, and then the Crossman Hall of Fame in 2003. Right there below Ralph is Jim Coates. Jim Coates taught the Corps back when I started to teach and also when I was marching. He then went on to direct the Crossmen in, I think, the 2000 years along there somewhere, and then also Carolina Crown, winning a Drum Corps International Championship with them as well. He was inducted into the Crossman Hall of Fame in 2003 and the Drum Corps International Hall of Fame in 2018. Next to Jim is Bob Morrison. Bob Morrison has the distinction of being the first Drum Corps International Timpani Individuals Champion while he was marching with the Crossmen, then went on to be a leading arts advocate throughout the country and the world, continuing to take that role, as well as a grand history of teaching a variety of drum corps after the Crossmen. And then last but absolutely not least is Harold Robbie Robinson. Yes, he is inducted into the very first class of the Crossman Hall of Fame in 1999. And then just this past weekend into the Drum Corps International Hall of Fame. Robbie, he was our director. He was our founding director. And as you can see, his partner behind him, Charlotte, they guided us. They were our drum corps parents throughout, and really just why we're here today to discussing this. So really welcome everybody, and just glad that you could all join us today. Well, Bob, you went on after Crossman to do a variety of things.
You know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but all the time I've been involved as a music advocate and advocating for others to have the opportunities that I had. And that comes from the opportunities that I had with the Crossmen. It's one of the reasons why I went into teaching was because folks gave me the opportunity to be, in the Crossmen, and with Robbie and Charlotte opening the door, and Hannum and Chris Thompson not throwing me out after being late for the first rehearsal at Marple Newtown High School. But I used that to kind of drive my focus. So I went into teaching to give others a chance. And when I was teaching, I'm like, there's got to be a way to have an even greater impact. And that's really always been the driving force for me, is the opportunity to try to give others the same opportunity that I had from being involved in music, and particularly being involved with the Crossmen. I mean, that, when you talk about the impact that it has, it was that engagement with the Crossmen that has put me on the trajectory in my life career that I'm on.
Thank you. That's great. Tom, you and I marched together in Brookhaven way back in 1969. We were both little kids then, all the way through. And we kind of stayed together all the way through our relationship, teaching together in the Crossmen after we marched there. And then you went on to some a variety of things within the pageantry arts, not just drum corps. So how did your time with the Crossmen impact your career?
As a marching member, it was the culmination of being able to perform, and the Corps, fortunately, we were lucky to have people like Robbie and others that were able to navigate us through this merger, with the 507 Hornets, and Ralph was, teaching there. There's a DNA in the Crossmen, that is a byproduct of that, how you come together and merging, and you're overcoming things that most people, would stumble with. It still lives on today. Our whole thing all along was, man, we so badly wanted to try to get into being in a DCI finalist level corps. And that in 1977 was just, I'll never forget that. That was the most unbelievable feeling ever, But, at the same time, where it was a culmination of the marching career, it afforded me the beginning of my teaching career. So I was very lucky because it really, one thing, you could say the end of one thing led right into the beginning of the next chapter. And
well, what the Crossmen gave to me, first of all, Robbie, congratulations again. I didn't get to say it personally to you, and I wish I would have. I did mention when I did my Hall of Fame acceptance speech or whatever at DCI that you were one of the ones that gave me a break. You gave me my first break in wanting to teach at Crossmen, and started there in the color guard. And I really got hooked at an early age, same as Doug and Tom. I mean, it was when I was 11 years old, probably 9 years old, 11 years old, little town, and had a drum corps started, and my parents kind of kicked me out the door and said, you need to do that too. And so I did, and for some reason, it's become part of my DNA to just do it all the way through. I've been extremely fortunate.
Okay, thank you. And again, congratulations, Robbie. It's all transition to learning and a teaching aspect of coming from a Marine background, and all of a sudden you realize it's okay to step back 10 steps and come at it from a different standpoint of believing that each kid has a potential, and it's up to you to support them to be the best they can for that moment, and then for the next moment, and then the next moment, and the next moment. So they're in a constant growth situation, understanding how to support someone and through their nose and all their walls, that no was just for that second. They had the next moment to create that yes. And when you see that twinkle in the eye that the Crossmen, and a lot of them did that after like 77, when they got off the field and they came up to you and they literally just state, if it wasn't for me, I said, no, it wasn't for you, because you allowed yourself to go past your best to be on. that's what the Crossman taught me, because it forced me to change my attitude, my concept of teaching. Once you take that avenue of knowing that that's all drum corps is a support factor for allowing younger kids to have the opportunity to have that continuity and that group aspect of a team effort to win, and staying focused on that no matter what. That's what Crossman allowed. So thank you for that. I mean, it forced me to be a better person in teaching, because it forced me to look outside the box that I had myself in, to force everybody else to think outside their box, because I didn't want them to get back into where I was. So that's, once you learn that, you don't want to see anyone fall back. All you care about is pushing them forward, no matter what that takes. They need to know that you totally believe in them.
Robbie would appreciate this one. A memorable experience to me is when you know you're into it and you have to go forward with it. The first truck stop, the year I took over or whatever, and we pulled in and they fueled up all the buses. And they came to me for the bill, and it was like $2,800 for fuel that night. And I'm sitting there going, holy shit, how am I going to do this? This is the first night. I didn't know, I had no freaking clue. It's just, all right, well, dig in, and, out the cash came, or the credit card, whatever. I think it was cash at that time, even then. But but what came to light was, I'm sitting there on the curb, like almost putting my hands in my head, my head in my hands, sitting there just ready to go. I should just turn around and walk out of here. But I saw everybody like loading back up, or, just the kids. And it was a matter of, at that moment, realizing that now my job is to serve them and their purpose. They want to perform. And that was the first, really, the light went off after so many years of doing this. At the intimate level for me was when I looked at their faces and I saw how excited they were to get back on the bus just to get to the next stop, to the next show. Well, the first show at that time. And I remember sitting on that turnpike with, like, I got it. This is what I have to do. I'm into it. I took the step. In my case, it was not taking the step back, because the other 3 or 4 guys that were looking to take Crossman on at that time took a step back, except for me, and I stood still, and I didn't realize that was still considered taking a step forward. But that night was a matter of the emotions that I felt from seeing the members' dedication to what they had just done. They put themselves out and said, we're getting on the bus to go on tour, not knowing what was going on to go on tour, and not knowing any of that. But to me, that was the experience that gave that to me. And I've used it probably every year since. I think back on that one. That's why it's so vivid in my mind.
Oklahoma City, and obviously you were there with us, is my pick yourself up by your bootstrap speech, which is still going around members of the Corps today. I still get, why did you pick yourself up by your boots today? Oh, yeah. And that was the most important thing, especially when we were on the California tour and we were out between Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Raritan Passage. I lost all the tires, and I didn't realize that, and the truckers told me this later, that when you're driving out there, you have to stop about every hour and let the tires cool down. Well, I didn't know that. So we ran out of tires, and I was sitting on the curb or the side, and a train was coming up from Albuquerque, a passenger train, and the kids all got out near the road, and we're going like, hey, slow down, we got to get going here. Anyway, the bottom line to that was a very serious thing that happened. I was fixing it. I was putting the jack under the car. I figured it out. I said, okay, we're going to take this tire off, and then we're going to take this tire off and put this tire up here. And I had it all figured out. And I got under the bus, partly under the bus, and was jacking it up. And the bus started to go like, and I think it was oh, I can't remember names now, but one of the kids that was really into it with me grabbed me by my two legs and pulled me the hell out, or that bus would have been on top of me. And then he wouldn't have all this fun today. So,
That's a moment.
yes.
But the biggest memory that I have, and I talk about it all the time because it was my rookie season, 79, first tour, going to California. We're in Wyoming, and we come upon Spirit's truck on the side of the road that had fallen down to the embankment. And Spirit had just gotten, brand new Slingerland drums. And, I guess as Robbie was telling it the other night, reminded me of the fact they were about to pull they were going to pull the truck out of the ditch without unloading the truck itself. They were just going to pull it out with all the equipment on it. Well, Robbie came on the bus, told us to get off the bus and start taking stuff off of the truck. So we took everything off of the truck, loaded it into our bus. We had drums on Herbie on bus number 3, drums all over the place. We drive up to where Spirit was at a truck stop, about an hour ahead of us. And when we get out, we brought them, took all the gear off, and Tom Float had the drum line under a pavilion and called over our drum line. And as a show of thanks for rescuing their drums, they had brand new Slingerland keys on these red lanyards that they were hanging around their neck that they used to tune their drums. And each one of them gave one of our guys their drum key as a signal, or as a sign to say thank you, and actually to signify kind of a brotherhood or a bond that was created. And what it taught me was, as much as there was the competitive aspect of it, there was also the brotherhood aspect of it. And that while we would want to beat each other every night when we got on the field, when we walked off the field, we were all part of the same club. And we were there to support each other through thick and thin. And that's always stayed with me. It's always stayed with me through my entire life.
My acceptance speech the other day. Isn't that what drum corps should be all about?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. But between the Spirit of Atlanta and Crossman, it's been very tight for 40 years. It seemed like every time something happened to them, like when Jim Ott was killed on Interstate 55, we were there.
Yep.
We were there for their kids at the stadium up in Nashville. We stayed out in front of them. They didn't compete that night. And we played for them out in front of them. And then we all ran up into the stands and had hugs and kisses and crying and whatever. But, it just seemed like every time one of us got in trouble, the other guy was there. That was an unbelievable relationship. And it's something I always cherished throughout the whole time I was a director.
Next place. The membership was the bond that you're talking about. You didn't have to look beyond the core to experience this bond that Robbie and Bob are referring to. It was pretty incredible. And, so Robbie was the example. He opened up his house. Yeah. I mean, you and Charlotte opened up your house to all of us, and that was the example. And whether we knew it or not, and it set the tone for how everybody interacted with each other. It was awesome.
That's what's great about like Charlotte and that whole behind the scenes staff. They allowed you to create whatever you could to support the kids and to think outside the box. And as far as painting, that was just me looking at what KISS did. And I thought at this point, we need to do something special with the drum line. So yeah, I painted all the drum line. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And a few other words like went along with that. What are you doing? What are you doing? But you had to be different. You had to think outside the box. You had to set some standards. This is like dance that year. That was the first time a color guard really totally danced as a group with the capes and everything else. And then it picked up from then on with some of the other corps the following year. But it was just, the kids made it come alive. And it came alive because of who was behind the scenes, who was the support factor behind that and the willingness of every staff to think outside the box.
I have two more questions, but I'm going to kind of combine them just for the expedience of time a little bit. And the one was, who was your biggest, or who do you consider maybe your biggest influence in your drum corps career? And it doesn't have to be from the Crossmen necessarily, because we all have influences outside that maybe helped our career. And of course, for me, all of you, were huge influences on me, whether it be teaching or marching with, or directing, all of that.
The first part of that's easy. My biggest influence is on the call. It's Mr. Hannum. From the time I came in to that first rehearsal, through growing through the activity, through the corps, as the corps evolved, as the percussion section evolved, then as we went on to do additional work, writing together for several years, and then in my job at Pearl, and Tom was a clinician. I mean, we've had, our relationship has had so many different contours to it that it's unquestionably, Tom has had the greatest influence on my life, and I would also say that, but it's also the corps as well, because I think you'll see behind me is over here. That's my Aussie from '82, and it's sitting on a drum that I designed, with Pearl. And I've got lots of awards and accolades and Emmy and a Peabody and all things. And I do hundreds of presentations, but what people see is that Aussie over my shoulder. And it's there to remind me of my beginnings, of how the things that opened the door for me. So I keep that very prominently placed. I didn't put it there just for this call. It's been there for the past 7 years, I think, since I pulled it out, along with a Spirit Delta. But the advice that I would give is, necessity is the mother of invention. And right now we are in this great time of, because of the virus, because of COVID-19, and because of the restrictions that it's put on us, we're having to reimagine how we do things across the board, not just as it relates to drum corps, as it relates to society, as it relates to education, as it relates to everything that we're doing. We have to rethink our approach. And I think that people have to be open to focusing on what can be done, and not get hung up on what can't be done. Because if you get hung up on what we can't do anymore, it paralyzes people, and they just end up wallowing, as opposed to looking at it from the standpoint of, maybe there's an opportunity here for us to reimagine, to rethink, and that even, I believe that once we come out of COVID-19, quickly, we hope, with a vaccine, and we can begin to return back to some sense of normalcy, there are going to be things that we bring with us from this time that will make us better, that will make our drum corps better, that will make our education system better, because we were forced to go through this situation where we had to be inventive, be creative. And I think for, so what Ralph was talking about, you want to always lead, you want to be creative, you want to be imaginative. Now is the greatest opportunity to utilize those skills to reimagine how we can do our activity that we love so much and that we miss so much right now.
As far as words of advice, I mean, hey, I would say for a lot of the students nowadays, put the phone down. Put the phones down. Get in there. Talk to some people face to face. Learn how to communicate in a live, interactive environment. And it could actually be a difference maker for people in terms of how their careers unfold. And I say it is somewhat laughable, but it's kind of, there's a lot of truth to it. The last thing I would say is, don't go away. There's so many people that, if you go to drum corps and you get into the rehearsal, just don't go away. Because the people that stay, they're the people that continue to prosper, and they generally find a way into the organization and are able to stay with it, and often oftentimes become some of the best members that those corps have. But, you know, I mean, just don't go away. Just keep coming back. Even if they tell you to go away, don't do it. Keep coming back.
Hearing that.
So
The difference between drum corps today, drum corps day is privileged versus non-privileged. When we were teaching, like at Brookhaven, it supported kids that didn't have the opportunity to be part of an organization, that were in the bad areas, but the drum corps allowed them to pull out of that and learn and transition into life. Now it's basically a privilege thing. And there's not, you know, there's not that support factor that you had, that Tom had, that all the people at that level had, to support kids that needed it the best, needed it the most. That's what I think has lost the drum corps today.
Bob, you're absolutely right. Being intimately involved in how we set up what Drum Corps International goes for, I strongly believe in the emphasis we should place on history so we can make our decisions of tomorrow. We have to have a foundation, just like Robbie taught me, the foundation of dedication, passion, and hard work. And you may not have all the resources, but you can do it a different way and accomplish the same things. And that's what I learned through Crown. And fortunately, because I had dedicated people that would do, like Ralph walked into with Charlotte and Carol Oshel. And I used to see what they would do for him when he would say, well, I want to do this to a uniform. Well, all right, we're going about doing it, you know, and Robbie giving, well, we'll figure out a way to do that, you know, and I learned all that stuff. Well, that's going to be more important than ever for everybody to give back to the activity that we love. Everything to do the national tours like we do, or the 12 weeks that I talk about, is just going through the roof. So we got to figure out how to do it differently. And we're talking about ways that are going to do it differently. Whether or not we don't believe we're going to come back to jumping right into this at all. I certainly don't. It's going to be different when the curtain comes back up. It's going to be completely different. And the volunteers, it's going to take more volunteers. I will tell you, and I'll speak from my standpoint with Crown, we only have a couple of handfuls of volunteers. Everyone else gets paid something because they've learned how to put their hand out. And then it makes me feel guilty and therefore I go, well, okay, it can only be maybe 10, 20 bucks or pay for your gas, do whatever. But everybody's gotten into getting paid because they think that, you know, we can do it, we can afford it. That's changing all. And most importantly, the kids. The dedication that they've showed us during this period of time is because of the group of staff that we've had. And I can only speak my own personal experience, but every corps has done this, where there's one or two people, key people, 3 or 4 key people that continue to program on, continued the engagement with the members so they understood what this time is about. It's being humble, it's being about it dedicated, and it's about living your passion. And if you want that passion, then as Tom said, hang on here. We're going to rely on you when we get kickstarted again. And you're going to be the one that's going to kickstart us. So the biggest thing is change is upon us. We all know that. It's going to be no different when we go back. And to get that curtain ready to go up is probably going to be a lot of the dedication that it took before, but it's going to be done a different way. And we have to be open and receiving of everyone around us to know what that is. And more importantly, help each other. And that's what I say is going to be a key component of how we go forward. So
right now, that I've thought about a lot after I was inducted into the Hall of Fame. In my mind, my Charlotte deserved one of those, whatever you want to call it. She put so much work in here. I had to send her home one time because she had pneumonia. And she just worked herself. By the end of the season, after she woke up, I would have to take her out on a vacation or something so that she could get herself back together. And my God, she did so much for the Corps that anything that I got, she deserved half of, maybe more than half of. For the way she organized, she was the one that organized the souvenir truck and the kitchen. We started out in a pop-up trailer when we went to Atlanta that first year with bags of cereal and milk, and she would go out in the middle of the night and get 50 gallons of milk. You know, it was incredible. And you never think about that thing when you're doing your own thing, but she really took care of the kids, and I miss her very much. And one of the things I told the Corps as a whole was that, you know, this is your orientation into life, what you're doing now with the Drum Corps. There's no more draft anymore, so you're not getting drafted into the Army and they're beating the heck out of you. So you go to a Drum Corps, you know, that travels a lot like we did, and you learn how to get along with other people and how to it teaches you a lesson in life. I always compared the Army to it.
Well, you know, one of the things that Tom always said, and we've talked about this often, but, you know, even early on when we were teaching together is, wouldn't it be great if every kid in the United States had to do at least 1 year of Drum Corps?
I absolutely agree with that.
Amen,
I think
brother.
amen to that. Yeah, amen to that.
Yeah. Well, that's what
yeah, and I completely, you know, I completely agree with that. I mean, it would be a different place. I know what it did for me. I've seen what it's done for others. And it's just, you know, it is that thing that's lacking sometime of, okay, you're now on your own. You have responsibility. You have to do your laundry. You have to look after yourself. You have jobs, and then you have to perform. So, you know, it's a great way to get people to, begin to grow up. I mean, that it forced me to grow up. You know, I had my Crossman duffel bag with all my clothes that I had to load on and off of the bus when we went out on tour. It's just like, you know, you've got to learn how to look after yourself and get along with others and do all those other things. So yeah, if everyone could do a year, the country would be a much better place.
I'm fortunate that I've had probably 15, maybe 17, 18 now, kids that have come through the Drum Corps and went into the Marine Corps Drum Corps because they recruited them, and they breezed through their basic training, and they all come through as some sort of a leader, section leader, whatever that is. Speaking of, one person that is the main recruiter for the Marine Corps Drum Corps marched as a bass drummer, Billy Rulapol.
Yeah, and Crossman.
And Crossman. And him and I often talk, but he comes and does a personal gathering because he believes exactly what you're talking about. He obviously made a career out of this, and they look to find that Drum Corps person because they know it's going to be such an easier road for them, and yet they know that those people that go into the Corps are all going to be overachieving even there, whether they're learning how to write music, like write drill, become the next officer, or whatever the group is. And all of 90% of their officers that have within the Corps itself, of the Drum Corps and the bands, and it's all now going into the bands, the military bands, have come through Drum Corps some way, shape, or form. It's amazing when they really get the stat. If they were able to put those stats out and collect them all, people would sit there and all of it and go, yeah, you're right, Bob. Exactly what you said is kind of what they use as their own.
I want to thank you for joining us today, and I think we can all agree that, you know, Drum Corps is a significant and important activity that we need to do what we can to keep it going, and absolutely the same with the Crossmen. It's meant a lot to us, and you guys, the five of you, have meant a lot to all of us and to the Crossmen, and we thank you for that. So have a good evening, and take care.
Thank you.
Congrats again, Robbie.
Take care,
Yes.
Robbie.
Congratulations, Robbie.
Congratulations, Robbie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Keep Charlotte in your prayers.
Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely.
It is.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Great woman. Great woman.
Yep.
All right, guys.
Yep. All right.
See you.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care of yourself.
See you guys.
Yep.
It takes a huge effort and lots of different talents to run Crossmen Productions. We are led by full-time staff members supported by a board of directors with a variety of backgrounds, but we need more. We need help from volunteers with expertise in specific topics to provide us periodic guidance. We are seeking your unique skills. Can you help us lead a specific topic or a particular need?
The Crossmen have all of our instruments for sale. Brass, percussion, electronics, podiums, props, and much more. We can help you or your school with anything you may need. Reach out to us via email, sales@crossmen.org.
When I woke up this morning, it hit me. It's August 1st, DCI East, Allentown. And in an alternate universe, there's a lot going on today, but not in this one. So as I was getting dressed, it occurred to me that there's only two things that I wear on a specific day every year. One of them is my Christmas tie. I know, right? My other one is this thing. My Allentown picnic shirt. I've been wearing this every year on DCI East for as long as they've been making these shirts. And I thought, you know what would be cool? This. That's right, I did it. I jumped in my car and I drove to Allentown, to the Big Screw, where the Allentown picnic first started. Now, I know this thing isn't called the Big Screw. It's actually got a name. It's a work of art. But we met here for years. And then at one point, Park and Rec people decided that they didn't want people parking on the grass at this end of the park. So they closed off the driveway, made everybody move to the other end. So we went from here to this place at the other end of the park. Not too bad, though. Got some parking right over there, which makes it kind of convenient. And the stream seems to keep things a little bit cooler than at the other end. Whether you've been to Allentown as a performer or as a spectator, you've no doubt crossed this bridge more than once. And it brings us to the real reason for coming here today. Welcome to the Crossmen 2020 Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Our first inductee is Denise Ebersol. Denise began her Crossmen volunteer story in 2010 when her son Kevin joined the Corps. In addition to working on the food truck, Denise filled in wherever she was needed. Now you would think that story would have ended when her second son Connor aged out in 2016, but it did not. Denise returned to take on the difficult role of food manager for the winter camps, making the 4 to 5 hour drive from her home in Dallas to San Antonio for every camp, including spring training. When Denise is not working the food truck, she can be found sewing uniforms, selling merchandise, shuttling members and staff to and from the airport, selling raffle tickets at events, and lending a hand at the annual golf tournament in Dallas or the showcase in the square on Father's Day. Although Denise is working tirelessly while with the Corps, she always finds the time to spread the love that is the essence of the Crossmen family. New parents find her welcoming counsel both informative and reassuring. If they can't speak to her in person, they know that they can go to the parent Facebook page where Denise is happy to answer all their questions. Another thing Denise is happy to do is house, feed, and transport out-of-state and international members to and from her home before and after camps and during spring training. Denise always treats anyone involved in the Crossmen as a member of the Ebersole family. According to her son Connor, the Crossman is a major part of her life and brings genuine joy to her heart. From the very beginning of Denise's volunteer story in 2010, in addition to everything else she was doing, Denise has always been among the first ones to help unload and one of the last ones left after packing up. She's the last one asleep at night and the first one up in the morning, giving the staff and the admin the freedom to do their jobs. This commitment did not go unnoticed. In 2013, the administration presented Denise with the prestigious Crossman Volunteer of the Year Award. Now, in 2020, with her induction into the Hall of Fame, we recognize Denise Ebersole as the Volunteer of the Decade. Ladies and gentlemen, the Crossmen Alumni Association, and the Crossmen Hall of Fame Committee are proud to induct into the Crossmen Hall of Fame Class of 2020, Denise Ebersole.
Presenting the award to Denise is her son, Connor.
Thanks. Well, thank you. I'm still shocked and surprised by this whole thing. It's a great honor. And amongst everything else, I'd really like to congratulate Sonny and Chris, the other two nominees from this year. It is a huge honor to be in this group of people. It's people I've always looked up to, I've always admired their dedication. And over the years, I just kind of sometimes felt like a hanger-on because I love the course so much. I just love going down and hanging out and having a good time. And yeah, it has become a job. There are parts of it that I have been assumed as my job, introducing and recruiting new volunteers each year, running the food truck at camps. But I do it out of love. I do it for the activity, and it's fun. Great people. And as far as I know, if there's Corps next year, all willing, we'll be back again in 2021. So thank you to the Alumni Association, and thank you to everyone who nominated me and for all those who voted. It's a great honor.
You're welcome. Congratulations and welcome to the club.
Our next inductee is Christopher Feist. Chris Feist marched in the Crossman snare line in 1983 and 1985. Having aged out of the activity, he returned in 1988 and quickly became a key member of the percussion staff through the '92 season. When Chris returned as an instructor, the Crossmen were in the process of rebuilding after several lean years. His timing could not have been better. The Corps needed an instructor to manage the day-to-day needs of the percussion section, and Chris stepped up to be that person. Chris Feist was a game changer. The members who marched under Chris's tutelage during those years confessed to having been a handful. They described themselves as very strong personalities. But Chris was unwavering. He always kept his cool and got the most out of the talent in front of him. In the words of Mark Thurston, Chris brought structure to the Corps that every section would eventually benefit from. His relentless determination to make the Corps great was the key to the Crossmen turning it around so quickly. Others who have been taught by Chris or who have worked with him describe Chris as a model of consistency and professionalism. They learned important traits from him: discipline, work ethic, being respectful and responsible, attention to detail, and quality of sound. Chris always demanded excellence. These traits would prove to be his legacy when it came time for Chris to move on. Such legacies are the bones of the Crossmen Drum Corps. Those who followed in his footsteps had big shoes to fill, but they had a roadmap, the example of how to be. Chris Feist has been called the unsung hero of the Crossmen percussion section during his tenure with the Corps. So the voting members of the Crossmen Hall of Fame have decided it's finally time to sing Chris's song. Ladies and gentlemen, the Crossmen the Crossmen Alumni Association, and the Crossmen Hall of Fame Committee are proud to induct into the Crossmen Hall of Fame Class of 2020, Chris Feist.
And presenting the award to Chris is Dan O'Neill.
Well, honored to be a part of this process. I was in the Corps from 86 to 91, and I reached out to a group of people that were part of the drumline and from 88 to 91, and there were about 22 people, myself included. Everybody emphatically and with much support said, agreed with me that Chris should be in the Hall of Fame, and there should be no doubt about it. So I'm very thankful for everything that Chris did for me, as well as the drum corps that I love. And it's my honor to introduce Chris Feist. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Rick. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate Sonny and Denise as my classmates in being inducted into this legendary drum corps Hall of Fame. I also really need to congratulate our founding father, Mr. Robinson, and his induction into the DCI Hall of Fame a week ago. And to also thank Robbie, and I wish dearly I could thank Charlotte and Dave and Archie for really putting up with me in the years that I was a member. I was not an ideal member. I had, obviously, I think I had all the intangible things it took to be a really good member. I worked hard. I was always there. I was really committed. I practiced. I never sat out. All the things that you'd want. But I was very loud about a lot of things. And I know that, thinking back on the 2 years that I was a member, that, I should have been better. And, how that translates to when I came back to teach the drum corps, the drum corps was just getting over the hump of almost not being in existence. And, as Eric would say, the corps had momentum. And to get on board at that time and to help build that program and to help get the drum corps back into finals, it was all the things that I wanted when I was a member. And, I was so determined to be a part of, getting the drum corps back to when the things that I saw that attracted me to want to be there. As a 16-year-old that saw the 1981 Crossmen drumline outside of the Harrisburg Forum, that all I wanted was to be a part of that. That was really all I was after. So, to come back and to be able to teach and to be a part of that wonderful group of people, that staff that was so determined and worked so hard and was so committed to just doing whatever we had to do to get through that day and get to the next day and keep getting better, then get to the next day and keep getting better. And that it really was that difficult. And we didn't complain, at least not outwardly. What we did on our bus is what we did, but that's how we got through it. And to then be able to leave the drum corps in better shape than where it was when I came in was really important to me. And that was something that I carried with me in any program I ever taught with, was to be able to leave it in better shape than when I came in. And, I couldn't be more appreciative and more thankful for this. I want to thank that group of people that Dan just mentioned, all those members from 88 to 91 that put their weight behind this to make this happen. I want to thank Mark and Grant for, seeing something in me to give me that opportunity to just go out on tour with their drumline and say, make this happen day to day, and we'll see you over the weekend. That was a pretty big risk at that time. And, like I said during the videothon, I enjoyed it. I didn't back down from it. I really, really dug in, and, with Eric and Bob and so many of my lifelong friends now, that we worked so hard to make that thing happen. To now be in the company of so many people from that era, to be in this Drum Corps Hall of Fame is really very humbling, and you know, it's really such an honor. And you know, I want to thank the Hall of Fame committee. I want to thank the Crossman alumni. You know, I really tap into those years almost daily. You know, I think about that struggle and those accomplishments and those achievements, and really the fun that we had making that all happen. I think about that all the time. So, you know, I was honored a few years ago to be inducted into the Buccaneers Hall of Fame, and I started that speech with, you know, no, I don't think anybody walks into a Drum Corps their first membership day and says, I'm going to be in this Drum Corps Hall of Fame someday. And that wasn't the case with the Buccaneers, and it certainly wasn't the case with the Crossmen. When I saw that drum line in 1981, I just knew that I just wanted to be a part of that. So to get from that to here is really a tremendous honor. So again, you know, thanks to everybody that made this happen. And I can certainly assure you that you'll never have to worry about me putting a stain on this honor, that I would always treat this distinction with the respect and the pride and the admiration that rightfully comes with it. So thank you guys, and go Bones.
And Chris, congratulations once again.
Thanks,
and welcome to the club.
Thank you. Thank you guys all so much. It's my fan club behind me here.
Our next inductee is Sonny McQuiston. There have been many individuals throughout the years who have been key to the growth and success of the Crossman Drum Corps. Many are in the Crossman Hall of Fame. However, there is only one individual who is the key to the existence of the Crossman. That person is Woodrow Sonny McQuiston. In the late 60s and early 70s, Sonny McQuiston was the director of the 507 Hornets Drum and Bugle Corps. He started as a volunteer bus driver and quickly stepped up to fill the role of corps director. In 1974, Robbie Robinson, the director of the Keystone Regiment, asked Sonny to take over the reins of the Keystone Regiment. Sonny said yes. The 507 Hornets were from Norwood, and the Keystone Regiment was from Newtown Square, a mere 9 miles apart in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. For this reason, many of the members from each corps knew each other from school, were related to each other, or had marched in both corps. During the early 70s, older members of both corps became interested in the newly formed Drum Corps organization known as DCI, and they dreamed of marching at that level of excellence. Even though the two corps were competitors, sometime during the 74 season, thoughts of a merger began to circulate among the leaders, and they approached Sonny with the idea. Because of his connections with both corps, Sonny was the one and possibly only person who could pull this off. After pitching the idea to the boards of directors from each corps, Sonny got the go-ahead to schedule a joint rehearsal at the Hornets practice site at the Boeing Company, later to be nicknamed Boeing Beach. The get-together was a success. Sadly, Sonny was not chosen to be the director of the new corps. The boards from both corps felt that Harold Robbie Robinson, with his business background and years of drum corps experience, would be the right person to lead the newly formed Crossmen. Sonny accepted this decision and humbly opened the way for the best path forward. To this day, Sonny keeps in contact with his kids from 507 and Keystone to see how they are doing. He has sat quietly in the background over the years, watching his creation become one of the nation's most successful and historic drum corps. He has never asked to be recognized. Well, this year, the Crossman Hall of Fame has widely decided that better late than never applies here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Crossmen Alumni Association, and the Crossmen Hall of Fame Committee are proud to induct into the Crossmen Hall of Fame Class of 2020, Sonny McQuiston.
Presenting Sonny's award is Rob Robinson.
Thank you, Rick. And Sonny, welcome to this special occasion here tonight. And we're just really happy that your son Ken is here with you as well. And we know what this means to your entire family. You know, around these Drum Corps Hall of Fame circles, we often hear the term way overdue. While I believe that that may be true here, I also believe that this is the perfect time for this to happen to you. I'm just so happy that, I was tapped on the shoulder by the good Lord and just made that call to you that day. We had a chance to talk and listen to the story of what really happened back there in '74. And so it's with great honor that the Crossman Hall of Fame presents you now as a member of the Crossman Hall of Fame. And here you go, pal. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'll find a proud place for it. I have the floor.
You do.
Oh, I'll tell you, for the last few days, I've been sitting here thinking about what I would like to say, and I thought of it, and I don't write things down anymore because I don't understand my writing. But I think back to those days, and I love the kids in both of those corps. I watched them grow up. I saw us put together 507 from a bunch of kids. I think it was 20 or 30 kids the first time I showed up, and they asked me to teach them how to march in a parade. And it just went on from there. When I got to be director, one of the first things I did was move the corps to Norwood, where we had a great practice facilities, and that the 507 post said that they will financially back us when we need the help. And the post, believe it or not, I had an opportunity to buy all Reading Buccaneers horns, and the post actually paid for them. So everybody had a nice chrome horn for a change instead of those beat up brass ones that we inherited. And the next thing I know, we got recognized, and I was able to go to the bank, and the First Pennsylvania Bank lent us enough money to buy a complete set of drums. And by 1971, we were ready to go on the field. And from that time on, it has just been a steady climb, with things getting bigger and better every year. And I was so proud of them. And then in 1973, I thought that a change was due with 507. So there was a new director, and I guess within the week, I got a phone call from Robbie asking me to come up there, and I said, do I want to do this right away? And I told myself, yeah, I miss being around kids. And I went up there, and I fell in love with those kids too. I mean, I was really impressed by these kids. They're a pretty smart bunch. A lot of them were going to Westchester College, I think, and I was impressed by them. And the talent and the horn line just blew me away. And the girls, what a crazy bunch they were. They used to sing to me on the bus all the time when I was driving. Sonny. And I did miss that when I left. But as things were going on in 1974, I think that both corps had reached a level that was going to be to go any higher was going to be very difficult. So I started talking to the kids in both corps, and I said that, what would you think about merging with Keystone Regiment? And they all got excited about it. And then one weekend, the Hornets head off, and I invited a group of guys from Hornets to accompany Keystone on a trip we had that weekend, just to have them mingle with the kids in the Corps. And they did, and it went over like you wouldn't believe. They all liked each other, and they just filled in. So I talked to other people, and I got permission, and I set up a meeting with the 507 post at their next board of directors, and went in and sat down and talked about the kids and talked about the changes that were taking place in the drum corps world, and how the corps had to get bigger and better, and that we could do that. And before the end of that meeting, it was unanimous that they said, go ahead, we want the corps to merge. So the next and last thing that I did was schedule that first time. I don't want to call it a practice, but it was like a get together at Boeing Beach. And it was like, that was the super glue that put them together. And from that point on, there was no stopping them. And I stepped back out of the way. I knew that they picked, that actually when it started out, they said they picked Robbie and me as co-directors. Well, I didn't really think that would work too well, because I know Robbie's Robbie and Sonny's Sonny. So I didn't want to cause any conflict in the course. So I thought the best thing I could do is step out of the way, because I knew that everybody that was there, all the adults that were involved, and the group of managers that we had could handle it, and they did wonderful. I remember the first time I saw them after that with the gray uniforms and the pictures of the drum line and the horn line and recognizing the kids in there. I really felt proud. And I don't know what more I could say about it, except that I was totally excited to see how far they went in that period of time, when right after they merged, to the point where they got to compete against all the big boys, more or less. And I don't remember what year it was that they made finals. Who knows?
1977.
Was it? And that had to be one of the proudest things.
Yeah.
And I love all the stories I heard. I love the story about the Spirit of Atlanta.
Yeah.
I loved your dad's speech. He prepared quite a long one there.
Yes, he did.
I could not compete against that. But I am so proud. I am so proud that I was awarded this. And I'll tell you, the one strange thing is that all of a sudden I feel like I was a part of it all.
Before we leave Allentown today, there's just a few more things that we need to do. So this is usually equipment truck row, the stretch from the stadium up to where the next street comes in. It's always so cool to walk through here after the show. Everybody's loading back up, getting ready to head to Indianapolis. That concludes our induction ceremony for 2020. Thank you.
That was some pretty incredible stuff there. So thank you to all of those that were involved in putting that incredible stuff together.
Yeah,
Ready?
Josh, it was a pretty emotional day up in Allentown on the 1st. Hardly anybody around, and just not the normal Allentown that I'm used to.
I can believe it. It was the first time in 15 years that I wasn't there. So, So what do we have coming up next month?
Well, as far as I know, we're going to have a drum major show.
Extravaganza.
Extravaganza. Yeah. Everything and anything you want to know about Crossman drum majors, we're going to try to fit it into that show.
Yep, got some incredible stories, interviews lined up, so looking forward to it. We'll see you all next month. Thanks for joining us.